Hey guys, welcome back. Last time I reviewed a couple of Master Mod's R-hopped barrels. Those were really interesting and innovative upgrades. ICS very graciously sent them over, and they also sent a couple of other parts from Master Mods. We've got their piston head, cylinder head, and piston. I'm going to install these in my classic Army G36K, which is one of the guns I used in the barrel comparison last time. I want to see if I can improve the durability and the compression a little bit. So to start with, we're going to get an FPS reading on the gun with all the stock components installed. Then I'm going to install all these parts, walk you through that, and finally give you my opinion on the parts. The packaging for all the Master Mods parts is actually really good. Comes with a cardboard box. All the parts are housed inside of foam containers, which is really quite fantastic. And this itself is the piston head. The piston and cylinder head are housed identically as far as packaging. All the Master Mods parts, except the piston, because it is of course mostly plastic, have the little Master Mods logo on there, so it is pretty neat to get that on there and easy to identify. The piston head is of course made of 6061 aluminum and is ported with, looks like, 8 ports. The screw itself actually has Loctite on it, which is fantastic. I do like to see that little nice touch on things like the piston heads because it really is quite necessary. Piston heads over time, can back off. And what's rather neat is the inside of it is hollowed out to reduce weight. Additionally, the O-ring is rather thick, as well as the piston head. I'm curious to see what the angle of engagement is with the cylinder head with this. The cylinder head is also made of 6061 aluminum. It is extremely light. I'm rather surprised. I've had all steel cylinder heads, which are really heavy, and of course, this is much lighter, which is definitely preferred for durability and longevity. The cylinder head has 2 O-rings, so that's always a bonus. And the front actually has a rubber padding on it. It's kind of interesting to see that. I usually get a firmer fit, and it's interesting to see if that can help with long-term durability as well. The back has a single rubber damper on it. It is rubber, it's not sorbethane or anything. And it is a concave design, so in theory, if you wanted, you could use a silent piston head with the cylinder head, which is a rather nice touch. The piston actually came with its own piston head attached, so I've got 2 of those. Cool. That was also Loctited on, which was rather nice. I did notice that it could be tightened a little bit more. The Loctite did help, but I was able to unscrew it pretty easily, so that was just kind of a little thing there. You might want to screw it down a little bit more. The full tooth rack here is really solid feeling. The second to last tooth is removed, which is a nice touch that can help with not hitting that second tooth there. And the rack is really, really stiff. I'm gonna need a punch and a hammer to actually get this out. Otherwise, it's not coming out. It's pretty secure in there. There are speed cuts on the side, and I noticed there are actually ridges on the inside of it. That's a first. I've not seen that before. So I have my classic Army G36K gearbox here. It's all stock internally. I have since tuned it, so I'll walk through that and what I've done there. And then I'll go ahead and install these new parts and see how they perform. As stated previously, the internals of the G36K are all stock. So, not a whole lot done to them. I did shim it and grease it, of course, but we're mostly looking at the compression system and a little bit of the mechanics. That's going to be the piston and piston head, of course, which are these guys. The original classic Army ones are basic. They work just fine. As long as the system is mostly stock or with light upgrades, you're not going to have a problem with them. These also have speed cuts, and I've done some angle of engagement correction with a sorbo pad on the cylinder head, which I'll show in a second. So I've gone ahead and removed the last tooth and a little bit of the third tooth there. I'm going to start with the cylinder head here. Let's see how well it fits in the cylinder. Oh, that's a really nice tight seal there. That is going to work out great. I don't think we're going to have any problems with that. Of course, something else very important is going to be how the nozzle seals with the cylinder heads. Let's check that. The nozzle doesn't have an O-ring on it. It's just a stock plastic, one piece of plastic nozzle. It actually fits really well and slides pretty easily. It almost feels like there is an O-ring in there, even though I know there isn't. It seals rather nicely with it. The fitment is perfect. Let's go ahead and install our piston head onto our piston. I like to use a magnetized screwdriver like this to slide the entire assembly, which the assembly is essentially your two washers here that sit around the bearing, or bearing cage there, your end cap here, and your screw, which already has Loctite on it, but I'm going to put a little bit extra on there just because I'm nitpicky. I've gone ahead and fed that assembly up into the piston there, so you can see the screw sticking out. I'm going to put a little bit more Loctite on here, and then screw this down. And it's actually kind of neat. The piston head feeds into the piston with a little metal shaft there quite a ways, and the air seal is awesome now. It's nearly perfect. The nozzle is the only point of loss now, which it doesn't have an O-ring, so that's yeah, that's to be expected. But without the nozzle, the air seal is perfect, which I'm really pleasantly surprised. That is fantastic. So I'm really expecting a jump in compression and a little bit of FPS boost with this. The last thing I'm going to check is the angle of engagement. And thankfully, it's actually rather good. I know it's a little dark, so I'm going to shine a light down in here on the piston so you can see. And the piston's all the way forward there. I've not put any kind of spacer or sorbethane pad in there, and it really is rather good. So I'm not going to worry about any kind of angle of engagement correction. Something I was a little unsure about when installing the cylinder head when closing the gearbox was the fact that it seemed kind of crammed in the front there, and it was really due to the rubber front end of it. It just didn't seem like there was quite enough room, and it could just be this particular gearbox too. I did get it installed just fine, get the gearbox closed, and it functions without a problem. I would be curious to try this on other gearboxes and see if I had that same occurrence. Overall, I'm really happy with the performance of the Mastermods parts. They increased the speed of my G36 by about 50 feet per second. Given that is just what happens when you install quality parts into an airsoft gun, but definitely it is a major improvement. I'm really looking forward to taking it out in the field and actually running it with everything I've put in it so far and seeing how it performs overall. I'm also looking forward to installing them in other airsoft guns once I can get a hold of more of them, hopefully in the near future. Thank you guys for watching, and a big thanks to ICS for sending out these parts for me to test out. It's been a lot of fun, and it's always a pleasure to work with ICS. Thanks guys, and I'll catch you in the next review.